Hello, thank you for joining this week's Paralegal Power Break. If this is your first Power Break, they are short, information-packed sessions that focus on different aspects of a paralegal's career. Now, in this particular Power Break, we're going to focus on computerized timekeeping and billing. So before we start, I'm going to first start off by discussing the history of the paralegal role. Now, if you've read any of my blog posts or if you have listened to any of my webinars or attended any courses, you may notice that I often talk about the history of the paralegal role. Now, the reason why I do this is because without that understanding, then it becomes difficult to understand why certain things need to be done a certain way or why you have to focus on certain things in your career and not focus on others. Now, the history of the paralegal really started about, I believe, like in the 1960s. So it's been about 50 years that the paralegal role has been a viable and really just a career and a function within a legal organization. Now, the reason why the paralegal role was created is because legal professionals, bar associations, and others within the legal industry understood that, and they knew and noticed that there was a segment of society that did not have access to the legal system. They didn't have access to justice because of finances or the lack of finances. They could not afford legal representation when they needed it. They couldn't afford legal advice. They could not afford the services of an attorney. So at that time, what started happening is that there was a move to start training non-attorneys to be able to do some of the work that attorneys did so that clients could be charged less because they were not being charged for the attorney's time. They were being charged for these other non-attorney legal professionals. Now, over time, you had a distinct paralegal role, and you had universities, colleges, businesses offering paralegal training. I tend to say the attorney was created to solve legal problems. Paralegals were created to solve a business problem. There was a business problem. There was a problem where individuals did not have access to justice because of finances, because of the cost, because attorneys had to bill for their costs. They had to charge for this. You have to pay. Their services had to be paid for. So that the business problem was they were offering their services, they are charging for their service and had to. They're in business, but some individuals that needed their assistance could not afford it. So in order to solve this business problem, the paralegal role was created. So now with that understanding in mind, you can understand the importance of timekeeping and billing. Now, here you'll see on the screen a picture of someone manually keeping track of their time. It's a little misleading in the sense where, it's dealing with a manual function. But it's important to understand manual timekeeping, so then when we go on to discuss computerized timekeeping and billing, you have a foundation of why the use of computers is important and how it allows you to save time and also to eliminate and reduce errors. Now, before the computer was created in computer systems, you had attorneys, paralegals had to keep track of their time by hand because there was no other option. But what this is done, and some people may even still do this, have some type of spreadsheet or some manual way that they keep track of their time. But when this is done, there's a lot of room for double billing clients, which we'll talk about in a little while, but also there's a lot of room for not billing clients for things that are done, and also miscalculation errors, not calculating times correctly. Because some firms bill on different fractions of an hour type of a system, and when you have to add that up and calculate that up, there can be some errors there. Or when you're using a computerized system, it eliminates this because the computer, the program, the system that you're using is doing this for you. Now, with manual timekeeping, a person, would jot down, if you use this particular system, you will jot down what you worked on and for how long. A lot of times when people are using manual systems, they're not keeping track of their time simultaneously, meaning they're not keeping track of what they're working on as they are working on it. Someone that does this may go back at the end of the day, end of the week, end of that billing time period, and start writing down what they worked on. This can create guesstimation, where someone is actually trying to remember what they worked on. So they're actually guessing how long they've worked on something, or the day that they worked on this. And this can cause issues not only with double billing, but there might be a legitimate where it looks like it's double billing, where someone worked on a particular aspect of a case on one day and someone else worked on it on a different day, or when the person is using a manual system, in the instance where they're going back and remembering what day and what time they worked on this, if it's something to where only one person or two people could have logically worked on that particular project or function, and a person is going back and trying to remember what time and what date they worked on it, they may put the same time or date someone else did, where it's not logical for that to happen. So it looks like they double billed when in essence they really didn't. So those type of issues come up when manually keeping track of your time. If you're still using a manual system, keeping that in mind, that those are errors that can come up. Now, with the advent of computer and the computerized timekeeping and billing systems, like Tab 3 is one. Then you also have companies like LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters that have billing systems. You also have Thomson Reuters, which actually integrates with eBillity, which is a timekeeping system that you can use. And I know before, and this is an online system, so you don't have to have any software. It's a cloud-based system. And I know before the option was available, they had a free option that you could use, and I actually used it before, where you can just use the timer in it. You can use that to keep track of your time. So if you put in the cases or projects you work on or clients you work on, and then the functions that you typically work on, you can start and end a timer as you work on specific clients, cases, or particular functions. So that reduces the likelihood of you forgetting what you worked on, when you worked on it, for how long you worked on it. So that's the beauty of the computerized timekeeping and billing. The other beauty of computerized timekeeping and billing, because they're different, and sometimes these words are used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Timekeeping is actually that, keeping track of your time, what you worked on, when, for how long. Billing is taking this time and then putting it in some type of format to be then sent to a client to be paid. With computerized timekeeping and billing, these systems work and can and they should work together. As with the difference with the manual system is that you're keeping track of something by hand in some type of report, and then it then has to be placed into a different system, where a lot of programs have the capability to be able to integrate these two functions. So it makes it smoother, and it also eliminates different errors when you're taking something from one particular system or a particular method and putting it into a different method or system. Now, we talked about the history of the paralegal role and the role actually being developed to solve a business problem, really. And then also manual systems, the importance of keeping track of time using a computer. Now I just kind of want to touch on some ethical issues that come up when billing for your time or keeping track of your time. One, and these are issues that have been addressed within the legal industry by various legal professionals. So these are not just suggestions that I have. They are actually issues that have been discussed and dealt with either through litigation or within different legal organizations. And now this first one is actually not something that's debated about. It's standard. It is billing for clerical and secretarial duties, or actually not billing for clerical or secretarial duties. These are things like filing things in a file cabinet, scheduling meetings and things of that sort. Now, so to keep in mind to determine what you should bill for, so when you're creating a report and you're determining if something's billable or non-billable, if you're doing that for yourself, or if you are a paralegal manager or legal administrator or a biller, to understand that clerical and secretarial functions are not to be billed to a client. The logic behind that is a client comes to an attorney, a firm, for their legal expertise. That's what they're paying the attorney for. So a good question to ask yourself is, would a client want to pay for this? Would a client want to pay for someone filing something in a file cabinet? Would a client want to pay for someone scheduling a meeting, not something like a deposition, but interoffice meetings that are just operational, standard business type meetings? Would a client want to pay for that? Again, a client comes to an attorney to solve a legal problem. And so asking yourself this can eliminate the guesswork and what should be billed and what should not be billed. Would a client pay for it? Would you want to pay for it? If you got a bill, would a judge look at this and question why a client is being billed for this particular item? Now, these are some other issues that should also be carefully considered when you're keeping track of your time and working on billing. And one is billing for mistakes. Let's say, for instance, you're doing some legal research and you've been researching for 10 hours, and then you come to find out that you've been researching in the wrong jurisdiction. Should you bill the client for that? That's a mistake on your part. The client is getting no type of service for that whatsoever. Should they be billed for that? Should they have to pay for work that they are not deriving any benefit from? That's pretty much like you working on someone else's case and then billing the client for that. They're not getting any benefit from it. That was a mistake on your end. So that's something you have to ask yourself, and how that and go by the rules in your office of being able to deal with those particular type of issues. And the last is, when billing for something that someone at a junior level could work on. This comes into play when attorneys are doing work that a paralegal could do, and then they're billing the client for that. I know some companies, like insurance companies that pay for lawyers or law firms to do certain work, they suggest that paralegals actually do some work. And some of them will question billings, and could be issues that come up in court when attorneys are working on billing for things that a paralegal could do. But this also can happen when paralegals are working on something that could be and should be delegated to a clerical staff or a junior level paralegal. So let's say, for instance, it's some filing that's being done. You're billing the client for that. You're putting that on your billing sheet because you're trying to fill in some gaps on your time that you have to turn in. So now you're putting files for this amount of time. Well, that's clerical work. It shouldn't be billed to clients. There's a clerical staff, if you have that available in your office, that should be assigned that. So learning to delegate that and delegating it, or not trying to pad your billing by putting that in to be able to fill time. And also, when there is a junior level paralegal in the office, if you're a paralegal manager, being able to assign junior level work to junior level paralegals, not assigning work that a junior level paralegal could do to a senior paralegal, because it's the same scenarios with an attorney. Why would a client want to pay for something that's a task that a junior level paralegal could do at a lower rate than paying the time for a senior level paralegal at a higher rate? It doesn't make sense. So again, if you're a paralegal manager, legal administrator, when delegating certain functions, keeping that in mind, but also you as yourself, if you just have to know how to delegate and you have that particular authority in your office, being able to do that and say, okay, this is something that so-and-so could do. There's no reason for you to be doing that if there's a junior level paralegal. And it's not about, something's too good for this person to be able to do because they have the rank or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. It has all to do with the client and what they're paying for cost and what makes business sense. It just doesn't make business sense to do things like that. So again, if you're dealing with delegating work overall within your office, keeping that in mind. And then also when you are doing your timekeeping, making sure you keep that in mind, because your timekeeping is going to show up on someone's bill. You're keeping track of that for a reason. It's showing up on a client's bill. And you have to be able to do it accurately and ethically, so clients are not billed for things that they're not deriving any type of benefit from. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this particular session up. You can find more about different systems. If you're wanting to learn more about billing, you can go to, there's tab 3, you can Google that, and just Google legal billing systems just for an overview of different systems. LexisNexis I believe has one, Thomson Reuters does. Also go to ebility.com and check out their system. I know you can do a trial version at least, but I'm not sure if they have it available yet where you can sign up for the free version where you can use their timer and keep track of your time simultaneously. So, instead of waiting to go back, even if you're using a computerized timekeeping system, instead of waiting to the end of the day, end of the week to start plugging in your time and what you worked on, use a simultaneous timer and keep track of it as you work on it, so there's no guesstimation going on, and you don't have to run into issues like a double billing and not billing clients for things, or what appears to be double billing. So thank you again for your time, and I hope to have you in next week's session.